Testing, 1, 2, 3, another. Testing, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. All right, where is everybody? Yeah, I was just there. Yeah.
Oh,
really? They were going to have happy endings later on. All right, we've got people all over this place, but we got to start because we're looking to have our presentation from Leo Astor, who's worked on this for months now. Right, Leo?
No, I finished a couple hours because Peter was supposed to do the presentation.
That's a joke in itself. I know a guy from Long Island with the same name, only his name's Peter. He must be related. You don't know him. Find a seat, folks. Find a seat. Find a seat. I say find a seat, and John Riccolo gets up and leaves. Okay. DJ Auction Services just showed up. At least the D did. As soon as everybody settles in, I'll start talking. Hi, David. Okay, here we go. I want to welcome everyone to the September 8th, 2023 meeting of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club here in bucolic Info Age. Bucolic, it is bucolic, especially outside. Are there any new faces in the audience? Any new faces? Anybody new? No. But I do want to recognize former president and his wife, Ruth.
Ruth's out in the RV.
Oh, she's on the RV, okay.
She decides she wants to put her feet.
Okay. Well, Jim Whartonby, please stand up, Jim. All right? Oh. And look who's wandering in at this moment. Another former president of New Jersey Antique Radio Club, Phil Vortzis. Let's give him a round of applause, too. All right, great. It's nice to have 3 presidents in the same room. Wow, that's something different. Yeah. All right, let's move on to infirmary reports. And I'm happy to say, when I was making this list, that I had nobody to report until I received a text message from club member Lou Lombardi. And I know this is silly to even show you this, but in a way it's comical because he said, Rich, this is why I haven't contacted you in a while. And I said, why? And he said, he's in his hospital room, okay?
There it is.
And he's all beat up,
Yeah.
okay?
But you should see the other guy.
So my first comment to him was, Lou, your hair's all messed up. What happened? And he said he got sideswiped on his e-bike. And he got sideswiped, up against the curb. And he actually didn't remember anything till he was roused in his hospital room. And broke his collarbone and kind of looked like that. And this happened Labor Day weekend. So, but he's doing a lot better. I talked to him on the phone yesterday, and I'm probably going to see him tomorrow for sure. But he said he may not be riding his e-bike anytime soon. They put a scare in him. So he did make my list of infirmary, but he's doing well. He's really doing well. So, like I said, he's in really good spirits. And Lou is, what, 78 now, I think, too. So he's healing well. Okay. All right. On to old business. Last month, August 18th, we held our summer repair clinic here at InfoAge. Be it summer, we were light in experts and therefore clients. But a good day was had by all. You can watch it, thanks to Radio Wild, on YouTube.
Sorry,
and
it's all my fault.
And it's archived there for your entertainment.
Great.
Yes.
And nobody won the first smoke award.
No.
And no, that's true. That's true. That's too bad. It didn't happen. Yeah. Okay. Now, InfoAge volunteers, specifically our own RTM docents, were invited to their August 26th annual barbecue, which was catered. Who attended? Who was able to make it? Okay, great. How about telling me how was it? How were the hot dogs? How was the lobster tails?
Excellent. Lobster tails was even better than the hot dogs.
What?
You know, but everything was great. People were great. The food was fantastic, and the weather was good.
Yeah, we've been looking out to that. Yeah.
So thank you for all those people who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Roberto, how was it for you?
It was fine, except I expected, I thought more people would be there. I didn't think there were that many people considering that was
It was all InfoAge volunteers, not just the RTM. Yeah. Same thing with you, Jules? Yeah. What are you going to do? John, same thing?
Yeah, and in addition, there was a car show.
Right.
So it was fun to do the car show and then do the barbecue. It was a lot of fun. But not a single Tri-5 ship.
No.
A 59 was the closest we did.
There was a 59.
59.
That's still cool car.
Oh, yeah.
And Sal didn't show up with his 58 Impala then, huh?
We saw it at the south.
Okay.
He ran into his tailpipe.
All right, something good. We gained 2 more members this month, and that brings us to 222. And one of them is a bit of a DX member. He's from Rhode Island, so that's always nice to see. And, over the years, over time, we expect to lose members. People come and they go. I call them cruisers. They come in, they look around for a year, and they leave. It's understandable, expected. I have no problem with that, There was one fella, I'll just tell a quick story about. He came in 2 years ago. I'll say his name's Bob. It wasn't Bob, but he had an interesting request. He was new to everything, and he wanted to learn. I said, well, that's great. Unfortunately, he was in Utah, so he couldn't make the repair clinics. But he had a Philco 116B that he wanted to work on. And I said, Bob, that's a hell of a radio to start on, considering you've never done anything before. And he said, yeah, but it was in the family and this and that, and I really want to get it working and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we can help you as best we can, long distance, but again, you should be starting on an AA5, and he didn't know what an AA5 was. But anyway, he wanted that Philco. So I said, you have the schematic for it, they're available, where they are, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yes, I'll get them, and then, so what I'm going to need is all the capacitors I need for the radio. I said, well, when you investigate the schematic and find what you need, just let us know, let me know. And he said, but you have the schematic. I said, well, yeah, I can bring it up. It's an easy schematic to find. Philco's very popular. He says, well, just you tell me what capacitors I need. And I said, well, it really doesn't work that way, Bob, And he said, well, I understand for YouTube that I probably need some resistors. Well, you may. And he says, well, just send me all the resistors I would need for that set too. This is serious. I changed the name, all right, just to protect the innocent, so to speak. And of course, then it evolved into, or devolved into, well, what about the tubes? Well, you know, do you have a tube tester? No. Well, do you know anybody who has a tube tester? No. Well, you know, there's a good chance the tubes are okay. He says, well, I tell you what, why don't you just send me 11 tubes that I would need for that set? And at that point, he's really wearing out my patience. And I said, look, if you really want to get this set going, you know, take it out of the chassis, take the chassis out of the cabinet and the speaker, pack it up really, really well, and send it to us, and we'll have somebody in the club work on it for you. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. Well, I said, I can't help you. Are you coming east at any time? And he said, no, but just send me that stuff and I'll pay you. And I said, you know, Bob, this is just not working out, man. And what's that? Yes, he was one of the cruisers who left the club. Yeah, you know, I had to tell you the story. It was an interesting story, but you know, it got to the point of ridiculous. Darren.
There's people doing the land office business right now on eBay. And I think it's probably why the guy thought that. There are people doing the land office business and selling rebuild kits, usually for hi-fi equipment.
Right.
Popular pieces. They'll sell a kit of all the capacitors, selected resistors, all depending what's known to be. And so he probably assumed that such was the case.
Yeah. I don't think he assumed that at all. I think it was just a matter of getting this thing going, and he was going to do it. And what? Utah. How old was he?
How old did he sound?
He sounded like in his 50s. Yeah.
Right, he was probably busy with his 8 wives.
Well, now that you bring that up, all right, he...
Club member to tell us about?
I'm sorry?
You got another club member to tell us about?
No, but that, about that, you know, it's always, and we are broadcasting all over the country here at this time, you know. I've got to be politically correct here. But he did mention, yeah, I'm from Salt Lake City, but I'm not a Mormon. He did say that.
Maybe it's a moron.
Listen, I think, listen, Bob, I'm afraid your YouTube channel is going to be canceled for that comment.
Couldn't we have pointed it to a local club out there?
You know, if...
Surely we're not the only.
Well, no, but I don't think there's big clubs in Utah, to tell you the truth.
You never trust those blog guys.
Anyway, that's part of my fun. But like I said, we'll by the end of the year, I'm sure we'll be up, you know, another 25 people. We'll do our usual 250 that we've been doing for the last few years. Okay. Okay. All right. So, AWA, Antique Wireless Association, is holding their conference in Henrietta, New York, and that's from September 26th to the 30th. Anyone attending? Anybody going up? Ray is going up. Are you going to be vending, Ray? What are you going to be vending?
Paper.
Paper. Nah, you don't have any stuff left.
I got more.
Oh, man.
I think Bill Kowski's going to.
Okay. All right. Okay. On to new business. Any other old business? Oh, I had a question. What else, Harry? He's working, he's out in the hallway putting up signs. Okay. Then Ray. Oh, no, he is Harry. Raise your hand, Harry. Wake up. This 100, what was it? 100 what?
Impact 100. Impact 100.
Impact 100. What was that? Come on up, come on up. All right, Ray, come on up. Because I read about it, but I just couldn't follow it. I didn't understand.
Impact 100 is a group of women. It used to be 100 women, but now there's more. Apparently, they each donate $1,000, and they look for places to spend that money. And we have submitted for their grant before, but we didn't really come close. Now, we have a guy, Mark Natanagara, who is a professional educator. He's done just about everything in the education field, and he knows how to write grants. And so we have submitted this year, and we're one of the finalists. So we had a group of about 6 women coming through, and everybody put on their best uniforms and everything, and it came out. It was very good, but we don't know if we're going to get anything. But the grant would be about $100,000.
But the point, it's not a handout, it's real work that has to be done.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, we have to submit a program of what we're going to do for that money, and a lot of it is geared towards education. So that doesn't mean we can paint the buildings or anything. We gotta produce educational programs.
All right, thanks for straightening that out. So that's a big deal around InfoH for us then. Okay. All right, so let's go on to new business then. All right. Okay. So, where are many of us going next week? Any plans next week? Kutztown, K-Town. Who's going to K-Town? Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Who's vending at K-Town? Yeah, okay, me too. Okay. And of course, that's K-Town number 48, XLVIII, all right? And obviously, Delaware Valley Club is hosting it, and this is their fall show. They have it twice a year for anybody who doesn't know that. From what I understand, both pavilions are packed full. They took no more reservations, okay? So that's I believe that's a first, all right? So I'll be there vending dicky caps and all sorts of other items that I have, I can find in my garage and basement. Now the extended weather looks good too, which is nice, considering that we're surrounded by hurricanes all over the place.
As long as we don't get hit by Hurricane Rich, we'll be okay.
All right. And in particular, Friday's looking good. And maybe you don't know this, but in the White Room there will be an auction, as they usually have. But from now on, I understand JD Auction Services will be taking care of all the auctions there.
congratulations, that's awesome.
Yes, a little round of applause for JD Auction Services. Come on up, JD. You, or just, not JD, just D. Come on, D. He's dressed for the occasion.
Yeah, he is. So, yeah, there will be an auction Friday night in the White Room. I'd say like usual, but it's going to be better than usual because we have a big estate coming in there. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Actually, it's part of a big estate plus stuff from other estates, and there's going to be consignments from the meet. So you're going to be at least 250, 300 lots in that auction. So the auction's going to start a little earlier, and we're going to try to keep it going fast so that everybody's out of there in a reasonable amount of time. So it's going to be a really neat auction. So yeah.
Some of the maps are up on the website.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, you'll see a lot of, but don't, that's not the only stuff there, because there's gonna be stuff we don't even know about coming in from, consigners at Kutztown, so. There's gonna be quite a bit of stuff, and there's some really quality stuff in the auction, so we've tried to curtail the junk in the Kutztown auction, and that kind of is supposed to go to the buy it now table for the club, so all those lots of junk that people like to dump at the, you know, like, you know. So.
Add in the other auctions you're going to have.
Okay, so we have 2 other auctions, well, we actually have 3 other auctions scheduled after this. So we have one scheduled in October, we have one scheduled in November, and then we'll be back. Those 2 are going to be at Kutztown, at Renninger's in the White Room, and then we're going to be back in Jackson, New Jersey at the Firehouse in January, and we're going to have another one following that probably towards the end of March, beginning of April. So,
Oh, great.
yeah, there'll be a steady stream of auctions coming up for everybody. So,
Great. Thank you, Darren. Okay. All right, last Thursday evening, your executive board had a mini e-board meeting that we had to call to discuss a few issues. As months go by, you know, during the year we have 2 official e-board meetings to plan for the next 6 months of what we're going to be doing, events and meeting places. So every now and again we have to have a emergency, I'll call it, mini e-board meeting, and that was what we had this past Thursday evening. Anyway, a few things to be discussed. One of them is a big one, and that is that InfoAge needs money, okay? Periodically, there's a clarion call goes out from InfoAge that they got to have money. And, well, I'll fill you in more at the next meeting because I'll be joining another meeting this Wednesday, and that'll be for the presence of the 11 clubs here at InfoAge. We have a meeting, and that's called for by Colonel Mike, and he'll be asking us, how can you make money for InfoAge? Please, please, give us some answers. So with that, let me ask, as I try to ask, and I forget, how many members in this room right now are InfoAge members? All right, it's better than half. It's better than half. Yeah, all right, good, good. Because we just, you know, we really want to show that our mothership, that we're, you know, with the mothership, being at InfoAge. So that's good to see. Because, you know, people do accuse us of, oh, you know, our membership has 100% members of InfoAge. You know, well, and meanwhile, your club has 11 members, so. All right. Okay, so that's that. Now, the other thing is, I brought up a question that arose last spring at Baraham Fest. I met up with a man named Perillo. He was a vendor. He was just selling some stuff, and I happened to see a card on his table. And the card said that he did presentations and that he was a former docent at Thomas A. Edison in, here we go, West Orange. Yes, did I get it right? In West Orange, which I've been. And if anybody else has not been, you got to go, because it's great. Anyway, he's a retired guy, and he does presentations. So I started talking to him. I told him about our club. I gave him a brochure. Yeah, would you like to do a presentation for our club? And he said, yeah, sure, I'd be interested, but any compensation? And I said, well, I don't know, but, you know, I'll ask about it. It seems only fair. So, so I talked about that at the e-board meeting last Thursday night. And also, I happened to run in, I know a lot of people, and I ran into a fellow named Bill Burns from Long Island, Hempstead, Long Island, at the swap meet at Seaford, Long Island, which took place last Sunday. And I've known Bill probably for 20 years. And I know he's all things Atlantic cable. And he knows telegraphy, you know, right from the beginning of time. So I asked him, would he like to give us a presentation? Now, he's on Long Island. Well, I know for a fact it costs $30 to get from Long Island to New Jersey through the tolls, especially now. And I said, you know, we'd love to have you. Would you be willing to come? And he didn't say anything about money or anything. But he said, yeah, but I got to go through. I have to go through the GW or the tunnel. I said, yes, you do, unless you have a boat or a plane. So with that, that's what. What's that?
Maybe we can go get him on a plane.
That's a good idea. You know, he's got that there. So with that, I said, you know, I've got to ask our e-board members what they think about this. And they are in unison that it's only fair if we can get new people to come in and give us presentations and, you know, experienced, known people who have something to say, that we should, you know, award them a stipend of some sort to get them here. Gas and tolls nowadays, hey, we all know, it costs you money to get here. I don't want to tell you how much it cost me to just to get here. All right, I have to tell you though, to go to Kutztown, it cost me $1.75. And, okay, they crossed the Delaware Bridge. All right, to get here, I think it's like $18 in tolls. So, so that's what we're going to do. We agreed, and that we will, if we find people who want to give us presentations outside the club, we will extend them a stipend. Okay. No, less than $10,000. Okay, $100 bucks. Yeah, $100 bucks. You know. Now, if you are a club member of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club, and you want to give us a presentation, all right, what will happen is we will pray for you, and you will get a high place in heaven. Right? Seems fair?
I'm going to heaven, man.
That's it.
You'll throw some 1B3s. Used 1B3s.
Of course.
All right. All right, so enough with that frivolity. All right.
Yeah, I think Jim has a question.
Oh,
Do you require an outline of what the program is going to be, so that you know that it's going to be a quality program?
you mean like is there a warranty, a guarantee?
No, I just an outline of what he's going to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, this fellow from Thomas A. Edison, he gave me a whole bio the day after, whether I wanted it or not.
Can you get it for $100?
What's that?
Will he come down for $100 or what?
Will he come down for?
$100.
Oh yeah. Actually, he was saying something like 75. You think I should keep him at 75?
Yeah, you know what? Great guys we are.
Well, I pay him 75, and if we really like the presentation, I give him an extra 25. There we go.
We can do an auction.
We could do.
We can bid on it.
We can bid.
Give him tips. He's better off than $100.
Oh man. Okay, so that will be in 2024. So look forward to a great presentation from at least these two gentlemen, and there'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more. Let alone the wonderful people we have that we can mine in our own club. So, okay. All right, I want to promote a resource we have on our website that seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle. All right? And this is it. Okay, Rich, you said this is it. And then you had a note to yourself that said, hold it up. Okay? So the problem is it's underneath Leo's laptop at the moment. So let me gingerly pull it out. Got it? Okay. And this is it.
That's it.
Okay, this is it. Yeah, everybody doesn't seem to know what this is. Jerry and Gordo, all right? Thank you, Jerry, all right? Scanner extraordinaire, all right, has put this together. Radios, Sam's Photofact Picture Guide, radios of the baby boom era. Hey, that's me, all right? Admiral to Clarsonic, Volume 1. They go from A to Z, all right? That's 6 volumes. Six. Yeah, there's 6 of them, okay? And they correspond with what Jerry did in all the scanning he did of all the photo facts. And again, they correspond with the same years, 1946 to 1960, okay? Now, this has been on our website along with Jerry's scanning, okay? And nobody seems to know it. So that's why I am promoting it tonight. Now, what I did was I volunteered my Radios of the Baby Boom Era, the 6 volumes, and he took a saw to them, okay, and took them all apart, and he scanned it all for you, for us, okay. So, you know, please, it's a resource, use it, all right? You get to see pictures of the radios instead of just schematics of radios, and then it'll put you what volume you need, what set you need of restored radios that you want to work on from 1946 to 1960, which is a ton of them. Now, your next question is, how do we get on that site, Rich? Well, it's been this way, okay, for now going on 3 years, okay? And this is the key to getting through. All right, your ID is NJARC_member, okay? And that's lowercase, and that's what it's going to, when you type it in, it's going to be lowercase anyway. Swordfish 2021 is the password, okay? All typed in lowercase. Many people ask me this, and they forget. They take pictures of it. We put it on the communicator, but still people ask, and that's okay. I understand. It gets, I know, especially the underscore, it gets complicated. It's hard to remember. Jules.
Now that you've revealed that to the entire world by YouTube,
Yes.
theoretically,
Yes.
is there a copyright issue?
No. No, it ended in 1960. Yeah. Jerry Gordo was smarter than that. Okay. And nobody has taken all the stuff and put it in push drives and sold it on eBay, neither.
Not yet.
Well, it's been 3 years, you know, so anyway, please use the resource, okay? I've got now sheaves of this. Someday I'm going to bolt it all back together again, you know? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, so I got that. Got it. And I will post it again tomorrow on our communicator, all right, the ID and the password. It helps. I mean, we're all old and we all forget. Okay. All right. I guess that. Okay. All right. All right. This is an advertisement for a new member, club member, Dr. Joe Wilkes. He will be he'll be giving a presentation to the CDL on Monday, September 11th in the Maker's Space. That's building 9059. And it's entitled Introduction to Vacuum Tubes at 8 p.m. Now this is kind of interesting. Last 2-3 weeks ago now, we had our repair clinic, and Dr. Joe was there. That's the first time I ever met him, and I just know him as Joe Wilkes. I said, because he had contacted me, would you mind pushing this out for NJARC members too, about this talk? And I just said, well, vacuum tubes, what do you know about vacuum tubes, Joe? And he said, well, I wrote a couple of books about them, Rich. Oh, okay, Joe. And then here we go with another abstract and a bio I got sent to me like within 10 minutes. And he did. He wrote a whole bunch of books. And he's an IEEE member, and he's a doctor, and he's everything. So he will be giving this introduction to vacuum tubes. So I said, hey, Joe, how would you like to give us a presentation? He said, sure. Okay. But now he's in-house, so he doesn't get any stipend.
But are they charging people to go to that talk on Monday?
Yes.
Oh, they are? Yes?
Yes.
And the charge is?
I don't know. But I seem to remember something. I don't want to put out a number.
Yeah.
I seem to
Well, I
remember.
think it's fair to warn people it's a charge.
Yeah. Well, everything here is a charge, right? Except here. Yeah. Would you be going?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Oh, good. You can give your report back to him if he's worth.
I know Joe from years ago.
Yeah, he worked with you.
He's the real thing,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And Harry worked with you?
A little bit.
A little bit, but you, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, good. But
Where did he work?
like half the people in this, in this club, yeah. Yeah. But we won't go into why he was at our repair clinic, will we, John?
Oh, good.
But then he'll never give us a presentation.
Did you break his radio?
Now he break his own radio? We tried, that's right.
All right. Joe, if you're watching, we love you, okay? Dr. Joe? All right. Okay. And there is another presentation that's going on. This is kind of interesting. Interesting event entitled Watch Party for the OSIRIS-REx mission, which NASA's asteroid sample return mission on Sunday, September 24th. It's a live feed from NASA at 10:53 a.m. And the touchdown is in Utah again. That's Utah again. How about that? And that is a $12 admission to come and watch it live, which I guess would be down at Nisus, right? No. So that's interesting. Have you going to join that?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. All right, but that's going to be live. That's going to be pretty neat.
I saw the movie.
I'm sorry?
I saw the movie.
You saw the movie?
The drama screen, I saw it.
Oh, man. See, we have more than one comedian here. That's great. Okay. Is there any other new business? I'm sorry. Anybody else want to say something? I see we're doing well with the docents. Everybody's volunteering very well, even though the work is getting harder because more and more people are finding InfoAge, and especially our NJARC, RTM, the best museum of all of them, right? It is. Good.
I will say, I got some stats, and during the summer, on Sundays, we average 48 to 50 visitors.
What was it, Harry?
48 to 50 visitors on Sundays during the summer.
Which I think is amazing considering people come to the Jersey Shore to go to the Jersey Shore, but yet they're coming to the museum, so that's fantastic.
And they spend a lot of time, too.
All right.
They don't just walk through, they ask questions.
Right, right. And hopefully for InfoAge's sake, they spend some money too. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on to Ham Shack Corner. Let's see, what am I looking at? Oh, September 10th, Mullica Hill Ham Fest. Who's going? Biggie, right? That's a biggie. How far is that from here?
It's about 65 miles from me. I'm near exit 8, if that helps you.
Yeah.
It's a hike from here.
Oh, so I get it.
You're going southwest and south.
Yeah.
So we're almost into Delaware.
You're crossing the state and going south.
Okay. All right, so I expect a report from you guys next month. All right. All right, September 23rd, GSARA Hamfest takes place in Tinton Falls, New Jersey. October 7th, OMARC is having their Hamfest in Spring Lake, New Jersey. I believe that's at the Firehouse grounds. Yeah. Okay. And of course, OMARC used to be here. That's a whole other story. Also on October 7th, Barra is holding their Hamfest at Westwood High School in Westwood, New Jersey. That's the Bergen Amateur Radio Association. Okay. All right. Now, as you may all know by now, ARRL membership dues is going up. All right. I believe that's in January. Plus, they want members to receive QST and other paper editions to be digital. They really would like people to go digital. And if you don't want to, you get to pay more money for it. So, seems to be the sign of the times with everything that's happening nowadays. And on top of that, I got a contact from member John Cummer, who's been a lifetime member of ARRL, I think back into like 1980. And he said that he got a Dear John letter. Thank you very much for being a long, long lifetime member. Unfortunately, you're still alive. And the problem is we're running out of money. We need money. And would you like to pay for your hard copy? We really would appreciate that. So that's happening to lifetime members too.
He mentioned that at the NEVIC meeting, the Zoom meeting the other night.
Yeah.
He was not happy about it.
No. And he said that he remembers lifetime membership in ARRL in 1980, $600.
Big money.
Yeah. Yeah, that was some real money. Any other Hamfest news? Anybody else have something that I might have forgotten or not found? Oh, I know what. How about November 18th? We got a big Hamfest. It's our big Hamfest, and that's at PAL in Parsippany, New Jersey, and that will be our fall Hamfest, not a tailgate. It'll be our show and swap meet. So next month I'll be taking reservations for that, okay? All right, so look, after a short break and sale of our 50/50 tickets, who I know we're going to have a great volunteer. Oh, look at that, I only have to say it and the hand goes up, thank goodness. We will have an incredible presentation by our very own Leo Asser, not his brother Pete from Long Island. It's going to be Leo this time. And we're looking forward to it. It's all about breadboarding, okay? So please, make it a short intermission. And 3 for 2, guys, 3 for 2. We're on a roll.
Jeez.
3 for 2, guys, 3 for 2.
Where is the link for that radio book you were advertising? Can't find it anywhere. It's a little cryptic. Okay. Library. I went there. I looked everywhere. Same photo type. Okay. That was a big. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I looked there. Okay. We'll talk then. Come on, go off. I'm pushing the little button.
right on. There we go.
Anybody want to buy these tickets? Because I can't. If I win, I can't take the money, can I?
That's a whole other story. We don't want to get into that right now. Okay, here we go. $21. Boy, you folks are doing good tonight. I don't know. I believe last month it was really pathetic. Really.
It's President's Day.
It's what?
President's Day.
That's correct.
Well, that's true. You know, you're right.
Well, the presidents and ex-presidents played big.
All right, and speaking of that, we're going to have former President Jim Wharton be pulled the winning ticket.
All right, cool.
Okay? But Jim, tell the crowd what years you were presiding over the New Jersey Antique Radio Club.
I did what, Tuesday? I was running for Tony Flanagan. I was the first president.
No, that's not what I asked you.
Well, I don't remember.
Okay, that's fair enough. Phil, probably you can figure it out. What years do you think he was president?
I was right before that.
I did 1998 to 2008, so 896 to 98.
Remember that, right?
There you go.
All right, here we go. For a grand total of $21 this evening, the winning ticket is 5, 4, 8, 2, 2, 4, 7, 247. Oh!
All right.
Steve, step right up there, Steve. Trust but verify, Steve. Who said that? Famous politician said that.
Ronald Reagan.
Very good. So now you get the money. Yes. Thank you. All right, look at that. Okay. All right, so here we go. I want everybody to pay attention. You're going to learn something this evening. Thank goodness we have the talented people that we do have in our club. And one of them is here to present to you everything you always wanted to know about bread boarding. I can't say that quickly, bread boarding. Bread boarding.
It's like waterboarding when you try to say when you say it.
Bread boarding? Yes. Would you like the mic?
Will it work without the mic?
No, you have to have that mic. That is for the internet. Would you like this?
Well, we can leave it on here. Okay. Hopefully it'll pick up.
All right.
I need all my
Do you have a
hand.
big voice?
Yeah, I think
'Cause
so.
I have a little voice.
Okay. Well, just you can leave it plugged in over there.
It's right there.
All right. All right. So, yeah. First of all, I want to start with the presentations about breadboarding in the past and today. And the whole idea of this presentation is to look at the past and also maybe interest some people into actually doing some breadboarding for experimenting and maybe learning about electronics. One thing about breadboarding, you have an idea and you want to make it work. So breadboarding gives you an option to do this. But first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I worked in nuclear power. I retired from nuclear power. I have a BS in nuclear science. I have an interest in ham radio, and I'm a member of the Old Barney Amateur Radio Club. My call sign is KD2LAY, and I have an extra. My work experience has been primarily as electronic technician, instrument control technician, and also work planning. As far as hobbies, some of the hobbies that I have is electronics, technology, and also I also enjoy playing around with CNC machines, traveling, and ham radio. Now, today's presentation is going to kind of dovetail into what Darren's presentation about metalworking for electronic circuits. So this is probably a good, you make the box, you punch out the holes, now you got to put something inside. So this is like working on stuff that you put inside the box. So When we talk about breadboarding, it really did start with a breadboard, a board that you actually cut bread on. And in the early 1920s, when self-powered radios, crystal sets, and tube radios were becoming, not being mass-produced yet, a lot of people got into making their own radios and so forth. What they would do is they get a board and they would put nails in and wrap wires around the nails and make their connections that way. Sometimes you would see people actually glue the schematic onto the breadboard and use that to locate where different components are going to be. And this is a picture of a three-tube TRF radio, which is an example of what a breadboarded circuit would look like. Yeah, it may be shocking and of little concern about exposed wires with lethal voltages in those days. As you can see, there's a lot of potential electrical hazards here. And a lot of people learn the hard way about personal shocks, and if people survived those shocks, they'd be a little bit more careful going forward. So electrical safety is a good idea back then, it is today. So if you take and start doing breadboarding, especially if you work with higher voltages, you might want to think twice about how you go about it. As experimental breadboarding was become more popular, people found out that they needed special ways, easier ways to make connections between components and so forth. So what came about is solderless clips that were called Feisenstock clips. Anybody, did I pronounce that right? Anybody know how to pronounce it? Well, I'll show you a picture of them. Yeah, here's what they look like. And these were pretty useful back then, but when you start getting into today's components like transistors and integrated circuits, they're not as useful. But they're about 100 years old now, and they're still being used today in a limited amount, quantities. And when I researched the name, it's actually named after the inventor. And there also is a park in Pennsylvania somewhere that has the same name, but I don't think it's related to him. It might be some relative of his. Okay, let's see. All right. All right. All right, let's go clip over to the next one. Okay. Typically, if you wanted to put together a circuit, this is one option that people use. And anybody see any flaws in this type of arrangement? Anything that can go wrong?
Yeah, the resistors aren't smoking yet.
No, okay. Well, that's one thing. And then you have the other issue of connections that are kind of floppy and they can kind of go almost anywhere. Things can get disconnected. So electronic enthusiasts struggle for creative ways to connect wires and components quickly. Wrapping wires around nails or tacks or slipping wires under springs was kind of tacky. So, breadboards evolved over time. And let me get this mouse to move. Yeah, breadboards evolved over time, and the term is being used for all kinds of prototyping electronic devices. One of the patents was filed in 1961, which described a wooden board with springs to connect the components. And Radio Shack kind of used this idea with their little kits, where you had little springs where you can attach components. So this is one idea that was actually patented. But as things evolved, people came up with some better ideas. Let me just go over here. Okay. And in 1960, Oliver Thompson of DeVry Technical Institute developed a solderless breadboard that had rows of holes that were joined together with little clips underneath them. And that didn't really catch on too well because as components developed and IC chips developed, it wasn't very useful for IC components. So in 1971, Ronald Portugal of E&L Instruments patented a similar concept, which is this looks like it right here, that had 0.1-inch spacing between the holes. And that's the same spacing that you have in IC chips. And this board is widely used today for prototyping. All right. And this is how the proto board is actually arranged. There's 5 holes here, and they're all joined together with a metal clip behind it. And then you also have some spacing in between here, and this has enough space so you can plug in an integrated circuit. And that way you can experiment with different circuits that would fit into this. Okay. Okay, so anytime you plug anything in this slot, it becomes electrically connected, immediately connected to this row. And then, and you can it'll accept up to 5 different components. Also, not shown on this particular board, but on this board, you have this strip here that's red and blue, and that's another strip for your power connections. And those are separate from each of these little blocks. So if you want to have power going up and down this rail, sometimes you have to put little jumpers in there to have the power conduct all the way through. And another feature of these boards that most people didn't know, if you need a larger surface area for working with chips, or you're making a bigger circuit, you can connect them together and make a larger board. There's little nubs that allow you to connect it. But one thing I found out is you have to buy them from the same manufacturer, because the different manufacturers have a little bit different standard, and how come this doesn't fit?
What's that one material?
I would say it's some kind of plastic, like a thermoplastic, and that's one thing you got to be careful if you...
Fire retardant polystyrene.
Yeah, it's probably something that doesn't catch on fire very easily.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, another interesting feature, when you're working an electronic circuit, they can get pretty complicated. And one feature on this, you have rows and columns, and you have numbers and letters that you can, like, do an XY coordinate system. And that way, if you have something complicated, you can follow a schematic of what point went where, and that way you can keep track of it. Now, this is a picture of what the clip inside looks like inside this little breadboard. And the quality of those breadboards is probably important, because those contacts, if it's a cheap board, might be made out of something that's maybe just plated steel. You probably want something like a copper bronze or something that's got a good connection there. And one of the things that limits the curtain capability of this particular board wouldn't be so much the clip, but the wires that you use. Because you're supposed to use like 22 gauge wire. And what happens with this wire is that the capacity of these wires are about 1 amp. So that limits how much current you can pull through each of these connections. All right. All right. Okay, this is the back side of the board, and you can see the metal clips that connect those particular rows together. Okay, now, after you've created your circuit and you have a working model and you're happy with how it works, now you can take this particular circuit and transfer it to a solderable breadboard. And here's 2 examples of them. And this got laid out the same way as that plug-in circuit board. And you can transfer your circuit and solder it, make the solder connections, and now you have a reliable circuit where it's not susceptible to vibration and heat and so forth. This is a similar board, but it's laid out a little bit different. Each of these points is independent, where on this one they're all joined together. Okay. A lot of companies like Heathkit and Bell & Howell came up with training aids that actually had a built-in breadboard in them, so you can experiment and learn how different circuits work. This particular is a microprocessor trainer where you can put the hexadecimal code in there, and you probably programmed it like in machine language. But this is probably from the 70s vintage, And if you find one of these, they're probably a good thing to find because some of them have power supplies that are part of it. And I think this is probably a better one. If you find one, you want to find one like this because this has 2 power supplies built into it. And you have the breadboard. You also have a signal generator, which you can use when you're testing a circuit or trying to see how a circuit works. All right.
That looks like a European, looks British actually.
All right. Now, if you can read that on top, it's marketed in 1976, and you can get different versions, and the colors were different depending if it was a pre-assembled unit or if it was something else, because you can buy them as a kit or you can buy them pre-assembled. And a lot of technical schools would have that, so when you go to class, you can experiment and learn on your own. The best way to do is to experiment and learn. Now, what had happened is, going forward, electronics changes quite a bit, and we have surface mount electronic components nowadays that there's no way you can actually plug it into a breadboard. So they make these adapters, they call them breakout adapters, so you can actually mount the chip that you want to test or use in your circuit, and you can solder it to that, and that would actually plug into your breadboard. Is everybody still awake? Everybody's good? Okay. All right, because there will be a test afterwards. I forgot to tell you that. All right. So they make these with various configurations, and some actually have the chip actually mounted on it already, so you can kind of develop a product with that. Okay, let's see. The mouse over here. Yeah. Now, most of us don't really care about integrated circuits. We want to work with vacuum tubes. So one thing about the breadboard, there's companies that found a niche market, so which makes this breadboard, upward compatible and downward compatible. So, but one of the problems that I was having when I did this research is that I wasn't really sure what the voltage rating on this on the breadboards are, and some people, were experimenting with vacuum tubes using these breadboards and using these little breakout boards where you can plug a tube in. And one person said they were able to test it to 600 volts. Now, if you're going to do anything, I would try to keep your voltages as low as you can, and you don't want to have some kind of arc over or some kind of shock hazard. So when you do that, you want to be careful. I would keep the voltages as low as possible. And these particular adapters, if you see there's holes on the side of it, so you can actually mount it to a breadboard, a wooden breadboard if you wanted to, and you could build your own tube circuits. All right.
Leo, if you don't mind, how available are these parts?
There's, if you search it on Google, you can put in vacuum tube adapters for breadboards, and that's how I found these. And there's also the company name that makes this particular one is on here if anybody could see it. Electro Resale. You can look that up and find them on that. And here's an example of a circuit that somebody built. And if you notice that these wires are 22 gauge wires, and you can make these wires up yourself, or you can buy wires already made up. And the nice thing about it, if you buy them already made up, they have the connectors on them and they're color coded. So this way it's easier to follow where your connections went. One of the things that happens is if you're not careful in plugging things in the right way, you'll become real good at troubleshooting because the circuit might not work or something unusual might happen. And one comment on this, when you're working with higher voltages, you might want to put some spaghetti or some kind of sleeve over these connections, because if you're talking, maybe 100 volts or 200 volts, you perhaps want to protect yourself a little bit, and you'd want to practice electrical safety. Always assume the circuit's on unless you know it's unplugged. And one of the other things you should not do is put in 120 volts raw power from the wall socket. You probably want to have some kind of current limiting device or a transformer to give you some isolation. And I imagine that, here, let me show you the next one. Anybody do anything with the Nixie tubes? Any interest here? So you can have a lot of fun with old technology with these breadboards. And here you have more or less a marriage between the modern PC board and an adaptation of the older vintage breadboard, where it's they're working on mounting the heavier components on this board, and they have their high power tube rectifier on the breadboard, because essentially you want to kind of keep the lower voltages lower on the breadboard. Obviously you can't mount a transformer onto the breadboard, so that's an interesting concept. And if you pick up some of these proto boards, they're good for experimenting, so you can utilize them for troubleshooting circuits, developing a circuit and see how it works. All right, let's see. All right. Now, one of the things, the limitation of the circuit, the breadboard, is you want to limit your current to about an amp because you have 22 gauge wire. You don't want the clips to overheat. I've had experiments where I had drawn too much current and it would actually start melting the plastic, and then that part of the breadboard wasn't any good. Now, another thing, if you're working with high voltages, you can have arc over, you can have a fire hazard, a shock hazard. Some people have operated these breadboards at higher voltages without issue, but maybe there were some unreported issues that maybe... I beg pardon? I might not tell yeah, kind of embarrassing at times. Now, a sloppy layout of the circuit board or the breadboard could add additional hazards that you might not want to deal with. Now, this picture here is from a place in Florida called Skycraft, yes, Skycraft. And about a year ago, my wife and I were down in Florida because our daughter was having her first grandchild. And we were there probably for about a month waiting for the baby to come, so I had to do something. So I'd research different places for electronics. And the reason I bring this up, if you're going to prototype something, you might want to figure out what's a good supply for parts. Anybody have any local suppliers that they know where you can get used parts? Anybody remember Atkinson and Smith, who were in Eatontown? You do? I don't think so. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, in Eatontown, yes. Yeah, I used to go there. I mean, they were a little expensive at the time, but you can find whatever you want. Now, Skycraft also has a website that you can go to, and I don't know what materials you can order, but if you're in Florida traveling around, it's probably worthwhile stopping if that's your hobby.
The only place in New Jersey that's like that is Greenbrook Electronics.
And where they look?
In its new location, they have a whole surplus section in the back.
And where are they located?
On Route 22 up in Plainfield.
Plainfield?
I think it's North Plainfield. It's
Okay.
like 3 miles from my house.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, there's IEI, but he doesn't have one surplus.
No, not sure. Well, he has some.
Yes.
Now, the other limitation of these, yeah, they are, yeah. Well, we're always looking for less expensive ways of making our projects work. But one of the other limitations of this particular board is the capacitance between the rows. So any circuit you build, you should probably limit to like 10 megahertz or less, because you have some kind of crosstalk. And anytime you build something with a breadboard and you transfer it to a solderless breadboard, you could have some issues where it doesn't quite work the same way because of the capacitance and so forth. Now, when you're building or breadboarding, some of the equipment that really is a must is a VOM. An oscilloscope's a good idea to have, because a lot of times you measure a voltage, you don't know what it looks like. You just, You know, you're really blind. And then you also want to have a couple of power supplies. And primarily you want to make sure they're current limited and you can control the voltage and the current. So if you do have a short, it'll fold back on you and you won't have things, you won't start having welding things on your kitchen table.
Yeah.
All right. Now, some of the other sources where you can get parts is Hamfests, which, you know, there's a couple of Hamfests coming up. Also, sometimes flea markets are a good idea because a lot of times people will have a estate clean out and they'll just bring their dad's or their grandfather's old electronic gear and there'll be boxes of parts, and sometimes you can do pretty well with that. Also, there's places where you can buy new parts, and some of the parts that you can buy new is on Amazon, and there's all kinds of modules you can buy. Also, DigiKey is a good company that good, you know, you buy new parts there. Now, when I was in Florida for that whole month, I found this one particular place, and this is mpja.com. And I'm not getting any money from them from doing this, but I stopped at their store, and they have a lot of pre-engineered modules that you can use in your project. They have some things for breadboarding that you can buy, and they also have a YouTube channel where a lot of their products and modules, they'll have a little description of it and show you how it works and talk a little bit about these modules. They have panel meters, they have all kinds of stuff. Not much vacuum tube stuff, though.
You brought, about a year ago, you brought in, I guess when you came back from
Right.
Japan, you brought a mess of those brochures to us.
Right, yeah.
I grabbed one, and I did order from them. I ordered a volt amp meter.
Okay, you had that little project.
And did a project, and it was a good product, and it came quick.
Yep.
And, you know, it wasn't as cheap as China. I'm sure it was made in China.
Probably was. Yeah.
But it came quick.
But one of the things that I found in their catalog that I like, they have a lot of pre-engineered modules. Like one thing I do is I prototype and build little CNC machines. So they have little stepper motor modules that, you know, you can operate your stepper motors. They also have different, yes?
You want to just explain real quick what a CNC machine is?
Yeah, a CNC machine is a computer numerical control machine. And basically you have a computer program, and it's used for automated manufacturing, where it's like if you have a 3D printer, that's called additive manufacture. And when you have a CNC machine, you're actually removing material, so it's subtracting the material. But CNC machines are typically used for like cabinet making, where you want to cut the same piece over and over again. And I've come across a couple of them. I have one that does plywood that you can put a 4x8 sheet on. I have one that has a plasma arc cutter on it that, you know, you can cut metal with it. I'm still experimenting with that. Now, some of the other surplus places that is available is Surplus Center, and they have all kinds of different things. Beg pardon?
Good name.
Yeah. And they have, they're not too much in electronics, but they do have some electronic modules here occasionally. They have switches, they have motors, and a lot of mechanical stuff, if you want, hydraulic pumps. But I just figure I'd bring that out here because different people have different interests.
Yeah, where is this store in Florida?
I think out by Orlando somewhere, towards the west coast somewhere.
Orlando.
Yeah. Yeah, they moved. They were in one location. They moved to a bigger location, and yeah, this is a fascinating place. I brought my wife with me, and they had a special seat for women to sit there and wait until her. It's just like if you go to if your wife takes you to a fabric store, for instance, you know.
I'm sure she got back.
Yeah, but I did have a picture of her like quietly waiting. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right. Now, other thing I wanted to say is those little sockets that you can buy where you can plug tubes in, you can make one yourself. If you have one of these little sockets, you can solder wires onto it, and make sure you put some heat shrink on them, and then you can plug it into the breadboard to experiment with it. And the other thing you want to do is you want to use the resistance color code. So pin 1 is brown, pin 2 is red, and so forth. And that way you don't have to try to trace out which one's which. You just go by the color code. Yeah. And, all right. Now, everybody was wondering what this thing was for. And,
Charlie, this is, sorry, it looks like a cattle prod.
yeah. Well, you could use it for a branding iron, but what I found out is sometimes you come across the circuit boards and things like that you want to maybe harvest some of the components. And have you ever tried to take a component, have you ever tried to take like a terminal strip off like this? It might have like, say, 10 pins on it with a solder sucker and solder wick, and you're trying to take this thing apart. Has anybody tried doing that? Yeah. How'd that work out for you? Are you? Yeah. But it's pretty tedious. Now, one thing I like to do is, with the switching mode power supplies that they're coming out with, you find a lot of circuit boards that have the little tiny transformers. And, they'd be kind of neat to play around. But they got so many pins on them, they're very difficult to take off. So anyway, after watching a YouTube video, I came up with this idea, which is a variation on the idea that they had. The idea they had is you would take a piece of copper wire and form it around the pin layout. And then you would actually solder that on to the pins. And as you're holding the soldering iron, that would transfer heat to all those pins, and the component would normally drop out. And I tried that, and it worked. So what I decided to do was, why have a separate soldering iron? Why have a piece of copper wire? Why not try this idea? So this is what
Each copper wire is that, Leo? Is that like a 20 or 18?
I think this is like probably a 14 or a 12. Right, and you can see what I've done here is I'm taking these tube sockets out of this scrap board that I had. And these tube sockets, they're not really worth much, but if you're working on a project, do you want to order one? Or if you have one laying in a scrap box, do you want to just grab one and take the time? Take the time just to take it out. So here's the idea of using that method. And you can twist it around and form it. The only thing you want to do is you have to apply solder to it so you get the heat transfer, and it's probably a good idea to put some flux on it. So it's a little bit, you're probably not going to use that circuit board over again. I mean, you can if you clean it up, but let me see what else we got. So this is, so these are the little sockets that I was able to remove from this board, and now you don't have to buy them or look for them. All right. Uh-oh, here we go. All right, this brings us to pretty much to the end of this discussion. And in conclusion, for the electronics and antique radio enthusiasts, using a breadboard can be a fun way to learn electronics and testing circuit ideas. When designing circuits, experimenting, repairing complicated stuff, it's helpful to keep a notebook handy. That way you can write down. You guys enjoying this guy? Yeah.
What'd you say, Leo?
All right, let me turn the sound back on this, because I think it's better with the sound. Okay, yeah, what this is about, let me just put this in a loop here, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on over here.
I'm jealous. I remember why I had hair at the biggest game on it.
Yeah. Being in Florida, I had about a month to spend there, so my wife and I were looking for places to go, and we found, going online, we found this electrotherapy museum. And my wife calls him up. The guy comes on the phone. Hello? Isn't this the electrotherapy museum? Oh, yes, this is electrotherapy museum. And we find out, this is a factory where they build ionic filters. And this is like a display where they have their different salesmen and visitors come. And they have a whole room of these high voltage devices. And this guy here is getting shocked with this thing. And part of it is, the idea of having this is to be careful of arc over when you're working on stuff. Because if you notice, he's standing here, and then as he's going, it jumps from this side to the side of him. And he's like this. And but the idea is just to be careful and keep it fun, electrical safety in mind. Lethal voltages exist, and it's not fun getting zapped, shocked burnt or electrocuted. Yeah. All right, and this guy actually works for RFG Engineering, and this is also in Florida. Anybody want to see any other pictures from this electrotherapy? I have some more pictures on my computer, but that wasn't part of the whole show. All right, okay. Let me see. Also, I have some things up front if people want to look at it.
What do they call this, a quack shop?
Actually, this is, he had all kinds of, he had like x-ray equipment there, he had glowing gas tubes, and let's see if, yeah, well, here's let's see.
Is he still alive today?
Well, yeah, I think the reason he's still alive is because they didn't put any Leyden jars on this. Now, because you know the amount of voltage that jumps across that gap is about 500, about 500,000 volts. But you know it's such a low current, and the current is low because you're not charging of a big capacitor. And that's real electricity. You might think it's static electricity, but this is real electricity. There's no difference in my mind between static electricity and regular electricity.
Does he have AFib now?
Well, we don't know. Let me see what else I can find that he has here. All right, let's see.
Was it right? Stole two drugs. Yeah, that crazy look. He does it that crazy. She does now.
Yeah, here's a spark coil of some sort. Might be used for some kind of medical equipment. And who knows what this is, a fluoroscope machine? And this is also like on a breadboard. This is like, old technology. All right. Let's see.
Where's that go?
I don't know. But, my wife and I were the only ones on this tour. And my wife actually found this fascinating, which was... when you first pull into this factory, there's a gate there, and you have to announce yourself. Then they open the gate, and you can come in. So we're like special guests at that point, which was pretty cool. I found that pretty cool. Anybody want to see what a CNC machine looks like? Yeah. All right. Let's see what I have here. Oh, here's a picture of my wife patiently waiting. I had to pay for that. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's go back here.
So what do you have to do in exchange for taking it?
Well, yeah, I agreed to go down with her. We drove the motorhome down there, and we towed our little car. So I was okay just flying down there for maybe a couple of hours before the baby was born, but we spent a whole month there. I mean, it was nice because it was in October. We had parked the motorhome across from Juno Beach in Florida. You walk across the street, you can go right into the surf, go swimming, and it was really a nice time. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, this is a CNC machine I'm working on, and so these are the modules that I brought from that manufacturer in Florida. These are the stepping motors, and this is running off a computer program. All right, okay, that's about it. Anybody want to come up here and take a look at the stuff I have up here? And any questions? What's that? Oh, I missed. Well, yeah, okay. About wire wrapping, this is a wire wrap board, which is kind of like a prototyping board. And this is similar to what the idea of having nails and wrapping wires around them. And anybody remember using these? Yeah. I got this from Surplus, and this was like loaded with chips. So I harvest all the chips. And what I do with this board now is I push these little pins out, and then I can use them for mounting onto a breadboard. It could be a test point, or you can use it for plugging in some electronics. Yeah, they're gold plated, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much gold is in here, but it's probably worth saving it just for what it is. Any other questions?
If you cheat like me, a couple feet of surplus 50 conductor telephone wire will keep you with jumpers for your breadboards for a while.
Yeah. One thing about it, you want to make sure that they're heavy enough. And one thing about these little jumpers here that you can buy, if you're going to, if you're going to make your own jumpers, the hole spacing here is 1/10 of an inch. And you want to have about 1/4 of an inch to 0.3 inch wire stripping on there, so it would plug into this board. So you can actually use this as a gauge when you're stripping the wire. You get 3 of these holes and give you 0.3 of an inch. And that way it goes in far enough and you're not getting the insulation down inside of it.
Wire wrapping wire is 30 gauge.
What's that?
30 gauge.
30 gauge, so that's even thinner.
That's what it's what.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, and it's probably might be even silver plated wire, some of it. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Leo.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Something different, really something different. I appreciate
All right.
this.
Okay, great. It was fun.
Yeah. All right, so again, something different. I learned everything because I've never done it, so I can really appreciate it. Okay, so again, thank you, Leo. We do appreciate your effort and whispering in my ear about 6 months ago about giving us this program. So again, thank you. We will be in Princeton next month, and that will be the 14th, I believe. It'll be Mr. October, and that'll be our Tom Molnar. And he'll be giving us a presentation. I asked him for what his title was to be, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet. So you will see it soon on our website. But he always gives us a great showing. So I really appreciate everybody coming out. Oh, one more thing, or two more things. I believe we have a minor little auction going on here. I was told to get rid of this stuff. So, if you're interested in the auction, please come up and we'll see what we can do with this. Does anybody remember the two items, the two wooden items? I believe they're ham-related items. The wood is a power supply, and they're both home brew. Somebody brought them to the last meeting here. I don't remember who. Don, you brought them. Thank you. And it was at our repair clinic. I'm sorry. What are they again? What was the pedigree to them?
Well, the only thing I know about it was it supposedly came from a farm.
A farm.
And there's a little bit of information on the inside, but I really don't know much about it at all.
Okay.
Just, they wanted to have it from home and offered it to me and said, do you know anybody that might like this?
Okay. Is one a power supply, John?
Well, this thing has no tubes in it. It's almost like it's like a passive, like a tuner or something. And this says, I don't know.
That's a tuner and that's an audio amplifier.
Okay, so where's the detector?
Well, it's a detector.
Oh, there's a detector.
We have one more audio transformer.
Yeah, I see
It's a detector.
Oh,
Okay.
very early.
Yeah, very, and it's homebrew. Okay. All right, so if anybody's interested in the national and this homebrew, come on up, circle around, and JD Auction Services will do the auction.